there is a phenomenon that allows us to explore in a monkey at the cellular level the differences between when the monkey is aware of what it's seeing and when it's not, and to find out what is the difference between what the cells are doing in those two cases. And there are differences that you can see at the level of the single cell. Next slide. This would be another sort of example that you could use where the stimulus remains the same. These are all ambiguous figures, where the stimulus remains the same, but what you see changes. So in this instance, you will either see the face or you will see the hole in the wall and see the mountains behind. And you can't sort of do them both at the same time. And ambiguous figures like those have also presented the possibility that what we can do is find out what the differences in the brain actually are. Next slide. Now, a slightly different sort of case would be this, where the stimulus isn't present, but you do see the thing. And what we'd like to know is what happens there, right? So that's just kind of the mirror image of the first kind. In this particular instance, most people are going to see, going up here, a line. And you might even see it as having a color contrast to the line here to the white there. There is no line, all right? Your brain makes it up. And part of what we'd like to know then would be, what are the cells doing and how early in the visual system are they creating a line where there isn't one? Now, why is that black thing in the middle there? Well, the answer is this, that it corresponds to the blind spot in your visual system, or at least in one eye. So if what you do is focus there, cover one eye, focus on the green spot. Now, it's going to depend a little bit on where you are. But if you focus there and cover your right eye, then the black spot should disappear. The amazing thing is that the illusory contour, that line that doesn't exist, actually fills in your perceptual system. Another way of attacking a similar kind of problem is with the waterfall illusion. You stare at the waterfall and the water's going down, 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 down. You turn that off, you look at a blank wall, and you see things going up. And the test of where that upgoing perception that corresponds to no stimulus, where that perception begins to kick in the visual system has now been explored. Next slide. Now, the indirect system approaches things in a slightly different way. The indirect system, the indirect approach, people say this. The direct approach is great, but maybe it's putting all your eggs in one basket. Maybe what we need to do is not just focus on sensory awareness, but also embrace other things. We want to know the difference between being asleep and being awake, or being in deep sleep and being in a dream. We want to understand what actually happens when people are under anesthesia, or what actually happens when someone is in a coma as contrasted to being in, say, vegetative state, as contrasted to being in that state where, sometimes called inanition, where they appear to be conscious, but as they say, they had lost their will. They simply didn't, nothing seemed to be worth doing. The capacity to be able to report on memories, the capacity to pay attention to different things. There are a number of range of related phenomena that maybe what we ought to do is try to do the whole thing. And then the story of consciousness, whatever that happens to be, should tumble out. So that's roughly the strategy of the indirect approach. So, of course, they're interested in all kinds of perception as well as attention and sleep and so forth. In this slide, mostly it doesn't mean anything to anybody. Does anybody see what this is a slide of? Oh, you do. Okay. All right, so there's England. England is the, yeah, all right, good. But usually if you don't see it, and I tell you that the land is in white, it's a map, and that's England way up the top, all of a sudden it's in. Part of what we want to understand is how top-down cognition can affect conscious perception, can actually have an effect on what you literally see. But there's a whole range of possible kinds of approach within this general idea. Okay, next slide. Now, I don't want to take any more time to talk about consciousness, and lots of questions can be raised in the question period. I just want to say one or two fast things about the other sort of major philosophical question that has been with us for millennia. The worry goes something like this. Brains are causal devices, so far as we know. That's certainly how it seems to be. Moreover, the brains are the source of choices and actions. When you make a decision to have a glass of sherry afterwards, you make a decision to put on your left shoe before you put on your right shoe, or to take the dogs for a walk, whatever. The decisions are caused by other events in the brain. So agency, that is the actions of being a person and making choices and doing things, depends on brain function. And this has caused people to worry a lot. Next slide, please. And it's caused them to worry, or I suppose I shouldn't be saying caused. This has provoked anxiety for the following reasonable reason. What happens to our ideas about free will, about responsibility, about holding someone responsible if the brain is in actual fact a causal device? Since brain events are caused, can we ever make a real choice? Next slide. Now, I think that there are good answers to this, and I think there are answers that are consistent with saying, yes, we do, for the most part, need to be held responsible for our choices and our decisions, but I'll get to that. The great Scottish philosopher, thinker David Hume in the 18th century really, I think, had this nailed. And what Hume said was, look, if your idea of free will is that there are no causal antecedents, then you've got a wonky idea of choice and decision making. If, for example, we imagine that I do something without any causal antecedents, without any desires, intentions, beliefs, or whatever, I just haul off and do it. You know, I just walk out of here and get on the roof. And you ask, why did you do that? And I say, well, you know, that was just free choice exercising itself. Hume's argument is, that's crazy. Those, if you really have a kind of out-of-the-blue uncaused action, those really are the kinds that we don't hold you responsible for. We just think it's somehow, you know, a most peculiar thing. The things we do hold you responsible for are the things where you did have the desire, you did have the intention, you did have the appropriate beliefs, and so forth. So Hume made the really deep point, which I don't know if there are any results in philosophy, but if there are, I think this counts as a result, that a contra-causal model of choice and decision-making, I mean, quite apart from the brain, even if you thought there was a non-physical soul, the non-physical soul would still have to be a causal thing in order for you to have responsible choice. Next slide. And so the question that one might ask of Hume then is free will an illusion? And Hume's answer is uncaused choice is an illusion. But the idea of responsible choice or being in control is not an illusion.